In the death camp, even a needle could become more powerful than a weapon. That's how a girl learned to stitch, and stitched her own survival. Her name was Miriam. She was only 14 years old when the world collapsed. Before the war, her life was simple, filled with small dreams. She loved sitting by the doorway with her mother, sewing little dresses for the dolls neighbors gave her. Her mother was a seamstress and always repeated the same phrase: "As long as I have thread and fabric, you will never be unprotected." Miriam believed that. She also believed the world beyond her small Hungarian village was too far away to touch her family. But the world arrived in 1944 with heavy boots, shouts in German, and orders no one dared disobey. From one day to the next, her house was marked with a yellow star. Her neighbors disappeared. The family's dog was left behind, barking, unable to understand why doors shut forever. Soon Miriam and her mother were shoved into a freight car, crammed among dozens of people. The smell of sweat, fear, and silence suffocated. The journey lasted days. Each minute felt eternal. Miriam clung to her mother's arm, trying to believe they were still together. When the doors finally opened, icy wind cut their faces. The stench of smoke and burning metal filled their lungs. It was Auschwitz. Soldiers screamed, dogs barked, whistles and chains echoed everywhere. Men to one side, women to another. Children didn't know where to stand. Miriam saw her mother's eyes harden. She whispered, trembling, "Don't let go of my hand, no matter what." But hands were torn apart, families split in seconds. Miriam was pushed into a group of young women. Her mother's desperate gaze vanished in the crowd. It was as if an abyss had opened between them. That instant, the girl who once sewed dolls at home ceased to exist. A prisoner number was born, a fragile body trembling among thousands of others. In her first days at Auschwitz, Miriam thought she would not survive. The cold tore her skin. Food was nothing more than watery soup and a piece of stale bread divided among many. Her body weakened, but what hurt most was the emptiness inside, her mother's absence. Then the unexpected happened. While other prisoners were sent to carry stones, dig trenches, or shovel snow, Miriam was led to a different barrack. Inside were tables, rusty scissors, needles, thread. It was the camp sewing workshop. A capo, cold-eyed, walked among the women. When she stopped at Miriam, the girl froze. "Do you know how to sew?" she asked in harsh German. Miriam only understood the word nähen, to sew, because she remembered her mother. Afraid to say the wrong thing, she nodded. That nod changed her destiny. While others were sent to lethal labor, Miriam received a needle and a piece of cloth. Her first uniform came out crooked, stitches uneven, but the capo only grunted and threw another garment at her. She would survive because she could sew, or at least pretend she could. In the workshop, she met others. Anya, a Polish girl of 18 who had learned embroidery from her grandmother. Ruth, a silent Frenchwoman whose hands flew across fabric with uncanny precision. And Katerina, a Ukrainian who hummed old songs while she stitched. They became each other's refuge. They shared crumbs of bread, sips of water, and above all, stories. Every seam was joined by whispers of another life. A wedding dress, a family tablecloth, curtains fluttering in summer wind. It was Anya who first taught Miriam to embroider. Sewing is surviving. Embroidery is remembering who we are. That night, lying on wooden planks infested with insects, Miriam cried silently. Embroidery could be her way to keep her mother alive. The next day, while repairing another uniform, she hid an extra thread. Slowly, the first letter of her mother's name began to take shape. No one noticed, but for Miriam, it was a victory. Each secret stitch was like a heartbeat still alive in a land of death. Time in Auschwitz was not measured by clocks, but by roll calls, endless lines, thin soup ladled in silence, and smoke rising beyond the fences. In the workshop, Miriam clung to the needle like an invisible weapon. At first, her hidden stitches were just faint marks. Soon, they became letters. Then, words. On a small scrap of cloth, her mother's name, Lea, slowly emerged. Anya discovered it first. One day, leaning close, she saw the outline of a letter. Miriam froze, terrified, but Anya only smiled through wet eyes. "Keep going. Stitching names is how we stop them from becoming smoke." From that day on, it was no longer only Miriam's secret. The other girls added tiny symbols, a star, an initial, a heart. Each stitch was a prayer against erasure, but hope was dangerous there. A prisoner once caught hiding a photo vanished forever. The fear was real. Still, Miriam did not stop. Each time she passed the thread through fabric, she remembered her mother's voice. As long as I have thread and fabric, you will never be unprotected. Friendship deepened. They leaned on each other when someone broke down. They divided scraps of potato, whispered memories of homes long gone. Every story was like a patch against despair. There were even small acts of rebellion. Katerina once altered a uniform's measurements to delay work. Ruth stitched a tiny hidden cross inside a hem, as if daring darkness itself. Miriam's secret vow grew stronger. If she lived, she would show this cloth to the world. Her mother's name would not vanish. One freezing night, she awoke to the sound of distant gunfire. Clutching the embroidered cloth to her chest, she whispered, "Mama, I will keep your name. I will leave this place, and the world will know you existed." The winter of 1945 arrived with a strange silence. Dogs barked less. Shouts diminished. Even the smoke thinned. Something was changing. Then one morning, no guards came. The barrack doors stood half open. A murmur spread. They've fled. Prisoners stumbled outside. Some collapsed in the mud. Others cried. Miriam walked out trembling, pressing the cloth against her chest. For the first time, the gates of Auschwitz stood open. The landscape was ruin. Bodies abandoned. Silence heavy. But there were no orders now. It was freedom, filthy, cold, uncertain, but freedom. Soviet soldiers gathered the survivors. Miriam, a skeleton wrapped in rags, was carried to a makeshift hospital. Days later, she was moved to an orphanage. Many children arrived nameless with only tattoos on their arms. Miriam showed the director her clothes. "This is her name," she whispered. The woman held the fabric and cried. In time, Miriam was adopted by a family in Budapest. She studied, grew, learned a new language. But every night she pressed the cloth before sleeping. Life went on. She married, had children, grandchildren, became a teacher. But the promise never left her. Her mother's name would not disappear. Decades later, Miriam's hair had turned gray when she returned to Auschwitz. This time, she wasn't alone. Her children and grandchildren walked beside her. In her suitcase lay the cloth she had carried all her life. It was frayed, yellowed by time, but the stitches still spelled her mother's name, Lea. Inside the camp museum, she handed the cloth to the curator. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. "This was sewn in secret when I was 14. It carries my mother's name. She never left this place, but I promised her name would not vanish." The silence in the room was profound. Visitors wiped tears. Her children held her hands. Her grandchildren, hearing the story for the first time, realized the fabric was more than cloth. It was a bridge across generations. At that moment, Miriam felt the promise fulfilled. Her mother's name was not lost in smoke. It was alive, preserved in stitches for the world to see. Years later, when asked how she had survived, Miriam answered softly, with the strength of memory. "In the camp, they took everything from us. But as long as I had thread and fabric, I could remember. Embroidery was my way of fighting oblivion." And then, looking at her grandchildren, she added, "Those who keep names keep lives." If this story touched you, don't let it end here. Share it, comment, keep alive the memory of Miriam, of Leah, and of all those silenced voices. This is the purpose of Voices from the Camps, to bring every memory back to life, so the world never again allows such horror. New stories arrive every week. Subscribe and ring the bell so these voices are never forgotten.